What's going on, boys? So today I wanted to go over Vought Rising. Vought Rising will be the newest spin-off in the Boys universe, and it will revolve around Jensen, Ackles, and Soldier Boy in the 1950s. And I think it's going to be an origin story for him, but regardless, it will definitely tell us the origins of Vought. And I want to go over my thoughts on the trailer and just the show overall, especially after The Boys just ended, and what I really think this show is going to be about and what it is going to lead to. Let me know what you think about it in the comments, because I'm not sure many people have talked about what I'm going to get into later in the video. But before I get into the trailer itself, though, I want to make my perspective clear. I am one of the people who thought The Boys' final season was completely botched, and I was not satisfied with the ending we got. Or at least how we got there, I guess. So I'm not particularly happy that this show even exists, because I think a lot of The Boys season 5 was sacrificed to promote this show. And I'm just still so disappointed, and I feel disrespected from this brand right now, just as a viewer. Because whether your thoughts on the finale and all that are negative or positive, it's undeniable they wasted many of our last hours with the characters we actually want to watch, so that they could plant seeds for and set up Vought Rising. So I'm just trying to be fair to this trailer, but don't get me wrong, I think it's funny how this franchise has already turned into the exact thing they used to make fun of. And look, I know it's not fair to everyone who worked on this show, but I don't think they should be rewarded for what they did to The Boys. And part of me wants this show to fail, just being honest. But that's just how I'm thinking right now. You know, I'm still getting over The Boys finale, so just bear with me, okay? As far as the trailer for this show, it doesn't look like garbage. You know, I think it visually looks really good. I really like period pieces, you know, if they're done right. I actually only just recently watched Sinners, and I love how they, you know, handled the time period they were in. It just looked really good. And so as far as that goes, the sets, they do look good, the outfits look good, and I like the costume design. I think Jensen Ackles looks he just looks off for some reason. It's definitely because he doesn't have the beard, but even beyond that, when he puts on the Soldier Boy visor, it just looks kind of funny to me. I'm not at all interested in Clara, especially after The Boys, but even when she was Stormfront, I thought she was super cringy and very annoying. She seems like she'll be different in this show, but that doesn't really do much for me. You know, I never thought the character was interesting at all. It looks a lot more serious, you know, the show overall, I mean. It doesn't look as comedic as The Boys, but for one, you know, how can I trust this franchise's advertisement anymore? And two, if they even have half of the same writers as The Boys, I expect it's still going to be degenerate as fuck. And don't get me wrong, I'm not completely opposed to that. But if it's going to be asshole and dick jokes all the time, then yeah, you know, I'm not interested in that. But I will say Soldier Boy, at least as we know him, his dialogue is so funny. And it sounds fine when it comes from him. So don't get me wrong, I'm cool with him specifically being that way, but, you know, I'm just hoping that not every character will have that same kind of language, you know. Like I said in my other video, it's like having two Deadpools. You know, it's much better to have a Wolverine for Deadpool to bounce off of. But I don't think he will entirely. I don't think he'll be like that. We know him as a soup veteran, pretty much. You know, he's been through all this shit that we're about to watch him go through. So he might be completely different when we see him in this show. But okay, let me tell you guys what is actually going on with this show in my mind. And it will contain spoilers for the end of The Boys. So as we know, Soldier Boy gets put back in his chamber and he gets put to sleep in episode 7 of The Boys, and we never see him again. Along with that, Stan Edgar is back running Vought, and they're proceeding, it seems like nothing ever happened. You know, this show is called Vought Rising because it's going to show us the origins of Vought. We don't really know how far this show will go. You know, in reality, we can assume it's going to be based off the viewership and how well the show does. Let's just say it goes good enough and they get approved for multiple seasons. It is plausible to assume that if that's the case, maybe they do show us all the way up into the point where Soldier Boy leads his team, Payback, the one that he spent season 3 of The Boys killing. Maybe we do get to see that whole story, you know, up until the point where he gets taken by the Russians, and then he's gone until season 3 of The Boys, when the boys free him. I think that would be fair to assume. But what I think is that this will end up being maybe a couple seasons in this time period in the 1950s, maybe even more, you know, how would I know? But eventually, I think we'll pick back up in the present day, and the term Vought Rising will actually be referring to them rising back, almost like from the ashes of Homelander. Because imagine, Vought has had and been dealing with Homelander for at least over 10 years, because in the animated series The Boys Diabolical, there is an episode showing Homelander's first mission, and I think he was 18 in that episode, which is canon to The Boys universe. But let's say if he was even in like his early 20s, by the time he dies in universe, we can assume he's late 30s. I mean, and that's me being very generous. And towards the end, as we saw Homelander's, you know, reign over Vought, or his, you know, him being the face of the Seven, it causes so many problems. Vought, I would assume, is probably disgraced at this point. I mean, To be honest, it didn't seem like there were many consequences given to Vought at the end of The Boys, but regardless, they don't even have a 7 anymore, which means they practically have nothing and they have to start over. And I could definitely see Stan Edgar using Soldier Boy to revive Vought in the present day. He could just say, we're going back to basics type shit. I mean, they can really play it however they want, but I think it would be a good idea in the universe, as far as being, if I were Stan Edgar, I think that'd be a good idea. And they left him alive on purpose. And he's just sitting in Vought Tower right now. And he never really did anything wrong to Vought. They completely fucked him over by giving him up to the Russians, but he was super happy to come back to the 7 this season of The Boys. And towards the end, he wanted to leave, but he specifically says it's because of Homelander. But now he's gone. And that's really it, man. I can totally see them using Vought Rising to almost reintroduce us to Soldier Boy, as in use the 1950s to reintroduce us to him and then bring him back to the present day and continue this universe. Now, would he be in the 7? And then we now have a show in the universe where our main character is working for Vought instead of against them? Or will they make him the hero that destroys Vought? I mean, who knows? In reality, it all depends on the numbers and how well the show does. Let me know what you think about this theory in the comments, please. Like the video if you liked the video, dislike if you didn't, and have a good day, man. Peace.